We talked about Juan Soto weeks and weeks and weeks ago, and we had Mr.
Everyone
Chelsea
hated us.
Janis.
Remember that? Everyone
Yeah,
was like, why are you even
right.
talking about Juan Soto?
Yeah, why are you talking about Soto? Because, well, at that point, there was speculation or rumors that the Nationals were going to move Soto, and then Mike Rizzo, their GM, shot that down, and now they couldn't come to an agreement within the last 48 hours on a 15-year, $440 million deal,
Mhm.
which would have been the largest deal in baseball history in terms of overall numbers, but the average annual valuation actually isn't anything to write home about. It would have been under 30, which for a player of Juan Soto's caliber doesn't really make a lot of sense. So
Yeah.
you're talking about a deal that is going to cost someone $400, $500, $600 million eventually, potentially for Juan Soto. But here's the deal. The Nats have said the door is open. They will entertain offers. That's not to say he will be moved during the season. It could be in the offseason. It could be a year from now, or maybe they never move him. He's still under control for the next 2.5 years. I read some quotes saying that this might have to be a Herschel Walker type move for the Nats to be incentivized to move Juan Soto. And if you read anything across baseball, including The Athletic, a number of people believe the Padres will at least be in on Soto. I've read that multiple times now over the last 24 hours. What will it take? A lot. What is it worth? Potentially everything.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have enough capital, both financially and prospect wise, to pull it off? That's probably the $440 million question.
Like it literally goes to, would you be willing type of thing, right? Would you be willing? And then you name off Gore, Abrams, Hassel. Like, that's what Chelsea Jane said it would probably have to take.
Mm-hmm.
Your top three prospects, which is Gore. Well, Kevin AC said Gore did maybe graduate, or is he still considered a prospect?
Yeah, I mean, I think at this point, it's all just semantics, but
True, yeah. But that's what it would take. It would take Gore, Abrams, and Hassel, at least minimum, to entertain an offer for Juan Soto. So you think to yourself, all right, you're going to sell the farm for this guy for where you're probably not going to re-sign him. Actually, you will not re-sign him. And are you okay with that?
Well, here's the thing. I mean, he's far from a rental. You have him for the next 2 years beyond 2022, so 2023 and 2024. Now, even as an arbitration player, he's going to make $60 million in all likelihood those 2 years combined. So it's something like 25 next year, 35 the year after. That's the expectation. So they obviously don't have that.
Would you do it? Would you do it?
The CBT.
Let's get right
Would
to
I
it.
do what?
Would you trade Gore, Abrams, and Hassel for Juan Soto?
Well, yeah, I would, but it's going to take more than that. So, yeah, I would absolutely trade Gore, Abrams, and Hassel for Juan Soto because I think it changes the fortune of your team for 2022 where you're all in. And with this rotation, with 4 free agent starters, and with my biggest need outfield and my biggest need hitting, and you take care of everything in one move, I mean, fortune favors the bold. It really does.
It does, yeah.
I mean, you got 2.5. It's not a rental. If it doesn't work out, you're not paying them $500 million next year. You're paying them 20 or 30. You're getting rid of a Hosmer and a Myers potentially next year. We can get into that. There's some money you can work with, arguably. But yeah, I put on Twitter earlier this weekend, I'd move heaven and earth for Juan Soto. That's how I feel. Some people probably don't feel that way. You can go real top heavy with the roster like Machado, Tatis, and Soto, and that can be dangerous. No question. Is it dangerous? Absolutely.
God.
Is it something that would be risky? Of course it would be. But AJ Preller has kind of been a risky GM over the course of his career, and it hasn't all worked out. But if you're in the business of winning World Series, this is the type of move you make if you're a general manager.
And when you just if you look at it, right? So Abrams is kind of blocked. Is he going to be an everyday second baseman, everyday shortstop, or everyday center fielder? I don't know. And Hassel. Who the hell knows when Robert Hassel or if Robert Hassel is going to turn into anything? He is a 100% prospect right now. Mackenzie Gore has looked really good, but he's also looked really bad and tired and fatigued. Is that just a case of most innings he's pitched in a couple years? Or is this something where teams are figuring him out and his stuff is not as good as it may be led on to be?
Mm-hmm.
So those 3 guys, if you want to make a case. and then you get an all-star MVP candidate, no doubt about it, for the next 2.5 years. I mean, Tatis, Manny, and Soto in that lineup. Like,
It's
are you kidding
ridiculous.
me? Are you kidding me?
I mean, yeah. I mean, if you have to think about it long and hard. Now, I don't know if they'll ultimately be able to do it. I don't know if it's as much about the prospect capital as it is about like their financial situation potentially.
That's the part where you're like, this might not work, and it probably won't work
Plus,
because
plus, I think there's teams with better. Don't get me wrong. I think there's going to be teams with better offers than the Padres. You know, I don't. I mean, Gore, Abrams, Hassel is it's a nice start to an offer, but like none of that is a guaranteed hit.
No.
Gore's not a guaranteed 1 or 2 starter in the big leagues. He could be. Abrams is not a guaranteed 5-time All-Star. Hassel's, a year and a half away at least. So, like, when you're making a trade for Juan Soto, you need to guarantee yourself. And not to mention, here's the other thing I'm reading. I'm sure you saw this as well. If they're trading Soto, they're probably asking for a Patrick Corbin back.
Right.
They're probably asking for Steven Strasburg. They want to alleviate that contract as well. How do the Padres take on Corbin's deal?
You don't.
How do the Padres take on Strasburg's deal in a move like this? And maybe there is an organization that would be willing to do that. So that's where it gets really tricky. The dollars might be the trickiest part, plus the prospects. I don't know if the Padres are going to have the best offer in baseball. I mean, it's hard to envision they would actually when you think about it. I think they could have a good offer. I don't know if it would be the best offer.
It also makes you wonder, like, I mean, if he's turning down $400 million from the Nationals, what is that? Just because he doesn't want to play in Washington anymore, or is he just wants to play with a winner, or does he truly want like $500-600 million?
Who knows? Does he even need a 15-year deal? I mean, I would think it would be like, I think you're talking about a neighborhood of 35 or 40 million a year for Soto, and they're offering like 28, 29.
Yeah.
So I'd rather go heavy in the dollars and a shorter deal than go 15 years. I mean, 15 years, Jim, that's a ridiculous length. It's longer than the Tatis deal. It's like unheard of.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, is this system good enough? Everyone talks about this. This system isn't the same as it was 2 years ago. Is Campusano and Abrams and Gore and Hassel and whomever else, James Wood, are these the players of the caliber that the Nationals would need to get back? It has to be. You got to sell this now to your fan base. You need guys that are going to be in the big leagues immediately if you make that trade. So that would have to be Mackenzie Gore. That would have to be CJ Abrams. You have to have guys that are coming. It would be 4, 5, 6 players for one, would be my guess. Or maybe 6 players for one in Soto, plus you take the contract of Corbin or Strasburg, something like that. 7 players. It's going to be a ridiculous deal. It's just going to be unbelievable if it gets done.
You know what's going to happen, too. He's going to go to the Dodgers. And it's going to be like, what the?
Don't joke.
What? I'm just, they're a team that will do that. Like, they will go all in.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done it before. So
look at last trade deadline.
Yeah, but are the Padres even in like a position to like do that? That's the thing. Is like, I want to see them go all in, but at the same time, can they
2 games up in a playoff spot?
Right.
Yeah, like what if you traded for Soto and then like missed the playoffs?
Dude, right?
I mean, I guess that would be hard to envision.
I don't envision that. I mean, it would fill literally every one of your needs, and it would solve every one of your problems, and you don't have to worry about getting potentially another bat because you have one of, if not the best in baseball.
The worst possible thing that can happen is that Ken Rosenthal tweets the Padres are close to acquiring Juan Soto, and it doesn't happen.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Because we went through that a year ago, and that was like one of the worst days ever for Padres fans. So, I mean, I wouldn't put all my eggs in this basket like the Padres are going to get Juan Soto. If it happened, it would be one of the biggest trades in baseball history. I mean, think about that. If it happened, it would be one of the biggest trades in baseball history, and the Padres would be involved in it.
Dude, yeah, I know. But I just at this point am not going to get any of my hopes up or even really put too much stock in it until you start hearing more about a potential Juan Soto to the Padres. Like, do I think it could happen? I think there's ways it could happen, but it would take a lot of pieces falling in the right place and a lot of things to like. You have to be very lucky to get this done. But as you heard from Dennis, like, of course Preller's going to be in the mix for this. you know damn well he's probably already called, or at least he will call the Nationals.
Well, this is what Dennis wrote. He said, Abrams, Gore, Hassel, James Wood, and then he writes, might not be enough. And I'd be surprised if it was, to be honest. I think you're holding everything over a franchise to get a player of this caliber, and you're going to position teams against each other, and then you're going to say we don't have to move them.
Right.
So they're going to keep asking. They're going to say best and final, keep going back. It's going to be historic to get a player like Juan Soto, who's 23. You'd have Tatis, who's 23, Soto, who's 23, Machado, who's 30 in your lineup. You know, arguably 2 of the top 5 hitters in baseball, 3 of the top 10, 15,
right,
when healthy. So, I mean, there's no lineup that probably has that ceiling on it. No, I mean, it's fun to think. It's fun to think about, but it's hard to envision.
Yeah, it's like a video game. Like, oh, cool! I just did fantasy baseball, and I have the three of the best players on my team. That's cool. But you got to think about, like, there's the money and the prospects and all that stuff you got to deal with. That in real life, it's much harder to do. Here's a good one. Here's a good would you rather. Let me pull this up. Reynolds and Bell, or just Juan Soto?
Man, that's such a good question. We're using that tomorrow on the radio. That's a really good question.
1,000%. That's going in the wrap.
Yeah, definitely. I should. You know what, Jim? I mean, maybe this is controversial.
Don't. Are you really going to do it?
I think Reynolds and Bell, because they need more than one player.
I agree. Now, Bell is a full-on rental, but Reynolds is here for how long? And you're not going to be breaking the bank at all for those guys. Now, Juan Soto is the clear better player. But getting 2 bats that are also very good. Now Reynolds is on the IL right now, and Josh Bell, did he make the All-Star team or no?
I don't know if he did. I don't think he did.
I don't think he did either.
Or maybe he did.
Maybe he did. But he's having a great year. Yeah, that is tough because it's like, man, Juan Soto is so enticing.
I mean, I would take either of those combinations. They're incredible. I mean, literally, the first one's incredible. The second one's incredible. In fact, I would just take Reynolds or Bell, obviously. And I think it would be a huge upgrade for this team.